I look very pale. This camera, don't I? Alright, so today we are going to talk about Westworld episodes 5 and 6. We're doing 2 episodes in one because it's been a little while since I put up a video about Westworld. Last week what was last Sunday? Last Sunday I was in Anaheim for BlizzCon, which there may or may not be a video of or about later. And the week before that, I don't have any excuse. I actually don't know why I didn't make a video for that episode. So we're going to just talk about it both here, and then come Sunday, actually start a schedule, hopefully. And I had notes, because I'd watched them both. I wrote notes on my Word document, and then Windows 10 decided to update, which forced a restart on my computer, and my notes just disappeared. So, we are going to go based on what I remember. The big notes, big moments. So this episode could be 5 minutes, it could be 20, depends on how much of both episodes I remember. I will probably get a couple of things wrong in terms of which episodes that they fall under. Hopefully I won't just make things up that didn't actually happen. I don't even know where to start on something like this, but I guess Maeve is a good place to start because she's was sort of been making a lot of headway between episodes 5 and 6. Between just waking up and sort of fully like becoming aware of who and what she is and things like that. She's come quite a ways into figuring the whole thing out. I'm not sure what role she's supposed to play in the main story, which is something else that developed quite a bit over the past 2 episodes, this idea of Arnold and who he was and what he's done. One moment from episode 5 I do remember was the fact that the scene where Ford and the Man in Black meet and discuss what the Man in Black is after, which is the maze. And the maze was sort of the final thing that Arnold did before he killed himself, or was killed by one of the hosts. And then in episode 6, like, he's been, like, the code that they're all accessing that's causing them to go haywire and stuff like that, like, is from Arnold and stuff like that. Now, from what Jonathan Nolan has said and discussed openly, is that we are not going to be seeing any more of, we're not going to be physically seeing Arnold in the show. Now, I mean, I'm not entirely sure how honest that is. It could very well be that Arnold is now a host. He has downloaded his consciousness somehow or programmed a host to act exactly like him. Or that this is somehow a 30-year-long con that was caused by accident when Ford created these reveries. So I'm not entirely certain what kind of role Arnold is playing in the story, besides in terms of like how much of a role he will play physically, and how much is Ford in on this, because like Ford's a dangerous man. We've realized that. And is it just that he's a dangerous man in the sense that he wants to protect what is his? And so and that's why him and Arnold are at odds now. And that's why he doesn't like Teresa, because as we found out in episode 6, Teresa is the one accessing old beacons that the hosts are transmitting data through to the company who wants to take over Westworld and stuff. There's a lot of like pieces, man. I need like a conspiracy board or something. But the fact that she was the one selling, or not selling, maybe selling, sending out the information doesn't really surprise me. Just as the fact that the woman whose name I can't remember, the Bernard's assistant, or coworker, whatever you want to call her, was then captured, also doesn't surprise me. I mean, the scenes are basically set up as cheap horror movie shots. We saw the, it's interesting because we saw, in terms of the Man in Black and Teddy, we did see some of how the Wyatt backstory has now affected him, Teddy being, that he is no longer that, like, prime example of a human being that we've seen in the past few episodes, that he does sort of have that darker side to him, and almost like a Cylon-like precision involved, you know, like that moment when he just mowed all those soldiers down and stuff. He's very cold, very calculated, very robotic, you know. No pun intended. I mean it literally. And so I wonder how that will work in the future. This is what happens when my notes disappear. I need to keep better track of them, or not have Windows update just restart on me instant without me telling it to. Let's see, what else was there? There was Logan and Will. Will made some very important steps in terms of his character progression. There's been this whole theory that I don't agree with, that he's the Man in Black and that this timeline takes place like 30 years before any of the other storylines. I don't see how that makes any sense, because, especially now, because Ford has, like, I mean, he literally pulled Dolores out of her loop, had a conversation with her, and then put her back. You know, the big hint that everybody thinks is the fact is that, I can't remember his name anymore. The guy who was hogtied to the Man in Black for the longest time, until the very moment that he had his neck sliced and then his blood put into Teddy. He's also, I want to say Hector Salazar, but I don't think that's true. I don't think that's the name. I'm too lazy to look it up right now. That he's the leader of, not Prim, whatever the town is that they're in now. Oh, there's so many names. I need to write a diagram for myself. The Easter egg town that is like on the far reaches of the park and stuff that Logan and Will went to at the end of episode 4. The leader of that, I think it's Lawrence. Lawrence, that's his name. Lawrence. I almost knocked over my water. God, I hope I'm not wrong. I got really excited. That he is the leader of that town. And so everyone thinks that, because he was here, that he hasn't come around to being, like, hung for his crimes and blah, blah, this, blah. And it's like, he appeared there when he was dead. That town is so far on the far reaches that there could very well have been 2 of him and nobody would have noticed, because that town's an Easter egg, right? So it sounds like it's something that players or attendees, whatever you want to call them, very rarely reach. I also, it also doesn't explain why all the hosts are the same, why the park isn't, why none of the hosts act like that guy that Ford talks to all the time in the morgue. His stories, the old host that clicks and stuff when he moves. So yeah, I don't subscribe to that theory, but that's what all anyone could think about when they were during this plotline. But Will did take some important steps while Dolores was moving closer and closer to the maze in terms of some sort of self-discovery. It's interesting because the flashes that she's having are of this town with the chapel and things like that. And it was and in one scene, it's very quick. There's a scene in Ford's office where he's sitting at a table and there's a miniature set there, and that miniature set is of the town that she's having flashbacks of. And I don't know if that just means that that's all taking place in the past, or if it's something that he plans. I'm not sure what Dolores' part in all this is to play right now, besides being the very first host. It would make sense that this was some older iteration of the park, or maybe it was how they tested them. It's a special area set to test the the hosts, see how they work. But Will, you know, he left Logan with the Confederate soldiers. So I'm not entirely sure that means we're going to be seeing him anymore. It's interesting because, you know, you have to wonder how much physical violence can happen to somebody who comes to the park, right? Because we see that the bullets, they just dissipate, right? They, you know, become smoke, and that they can't hurt other attendees and stuff like that. But I wonder how physical can they get with attendees before they're not allowed to kill them? Can they, like, beat them within an inch of their life, but as long as they're not dead, that counts? Like, what exactly is the limit on something like that? Let's see, we talked about Maze, Will, Teddy. I mean, we're in episode 6, and there are 10 episodes, right? Are there going to be? And yes, I know I'm looking this up, but I would look up Lawrence's name, so I'm sorry. Broadcast, production, episodes. Okay, so there's supposed to be 10. We've had 6 thus far. Oh, okay, and they have the Wikipedia thing has synopsis, which is good. And then we talked about Sector 17 was the other thing, Sector 17, because that was the little thing that Arnold had built for Ford, and it was like a replication of his family and where he lived and things like that. And these hosts were sort of only under Ford's control, not under the purview of the main park. But also that Ford is using this as a way to torture Ford. Like, he had the robot that we all knew was little Ford kill the dog because Arnold told him to. Also interesting of note that those hosts can only go as far as Ford tells them to, which means that when that little kid has encountered other characters, it's because was allowed to. So I wonder if that's like a way for Ford to keep an eye on certain people, like the Man in Black and Teddy, right? Because he did get them. Did the kids see them before Ford did, or maybe it happened just after? So he's still keeping an eye on them, maybe after the meeting. That wouldn't surprise me either. And then there's some drama with the board member coming in, and Sizemore, who's easily the worst character in the show, and I know he's supposed to be, but like he's of all the characters in the show, he seems to serve the least purpose. Like, he was interesting in the beginning as kind of the writer, but like whatever Ford's doing is infinitely more interesting. And the fact that I had forgotten about him because I don't think he's been in it since episode 3 probably says a lot. Right, is it episode 3? Yeah. So, there's that. Yeah, I think that's it. There's probably more that I missed and have forgotten at this point, but we're heading towards 15 minutes, so it feels like a good time to just stop drowning on. Yeah, I know last time I said we would get to a regular schedule, but BlizzCon happened, then the election happened, and yeah, taking a break sounded like a good idea. So now we're gonna get back on the horse. It's gonna be more Westworld videos. I need to make more videos other than Westworld videos. I'm not entirely sure what those videos will be. I don't want to step on toes on other projects I'm working on, so finding room for other ideas will be interesting. Let's Play seems kind of lame for me. There are a million people who do that. Yeah, I don't know. Alright, I'm going to end this now because we're literally at 15 minutes. So, yeah, next week.